Hello, friends. We're gathered here today to talk about the tCheck 2 potency tester. That's this right here in this little box. I've been using the tCheck now for a few years. I think I bought it before I even started the podcast. And I have come to use it as an invaluable tool for testing my infusions. And it really gives me that peace of mind when I am gifting or enjoying my own edibles, because I know how strong they are with a pretty good degree of accuracy. Now, what comes in the box? Let's pull it out here. It's exciting, isn't it? So, there is the Getting Started guide. There is a companion app with this product that you have to use, the iPhone or Android. There is a blog and lots of resources through the app and on their website. So if you have more questions or need tips and tricks for using the device, they're all right there. They have great customer service as well. Then you have the device itself. It comes in a few different colors, I believe. At the time I chose the turquoise. It comes with the testing tray. And it also comes with a dropper. I find I tend not to use the dropper very much because I'm using a lot of fat-based infusions, so it's hard to clean out. I'm always worried that it might, I was going to say infect, but it might affect the results if I'm using it and it's not perfectly clean. So I tend to use other things to drop my infusions into the testing tray. So essentially the other thing that I have that I use with this that didn't come with it is just a basic food thermometer, so I can test how warm the infusion is, and I'll get to that in a second. So when you want to run a test, you have to pair this with your phone and the app via Bluetooth. And then when you want to run a test, it'll look for this device after you power it on with the button. And then it'll say what kind of test you want to run, and you can choose because it will do your fat-based infusions, alcohol tinctures, winterized concentrates. There's probably a couple other ones as well. I tend to use it mostly for fat-based infusions because that's what I'm working with most of the time, but I am interested in trying some of the other things because I have some fun cannabis oils and stuff that I'm working with right now, but they're not quite ready yet. But of course, I'll be wanting to test the potencies of those when they're ready. So it's going to ask you to run the test, and then you're going to put a little dollop of your infusion in this little divot in the testing tray. You put the lid on. You pop it into the tray, and in a couple minutes you'll have a reading, and it gives you a reading of milligrams per milliliter. This is an important distinction. There was a time I recall where for whatever reason I was maybe not really paying attention, and I had calculated the potency of a batch of something that I'd made based on milligrams per teaspoon, which is 5 milliliters, which makes a significant difference sometimes in the outcome of the final product. Per milliliter, if it was 5 milligrams, for instance, per milliliter, but I was thinking teaspoons, well, that would be 25 milligrams per teaspoon, because there's 5 milliliters in a teaspoon, or 75 milligrams per tablespoon. So that can make a significant difference, but I only did that once. So it is per milliliter. And that's basically it. It'll give you the reading with only a couple of minutes, probably not even. And the only thing I find that is a little finicky with this when you're using it is that depending on the type of infusion that you're wanting to test, it's going to ask or need it to be within a certain temperature range. It can't be too hot, which when it's first coming out of, whether you're doing it on the stove or a crock pot or you're using an infusion device of some kind, it's going to be too hot initially. So you have to let it cool a little bit. But if you let it cool too much, you're going to have to warm it up again. So that's sometimes the only finicky thing I find about using this device, is finding the right time, the right temperature to test it at, because otherwise it just won't work. It won't read it correctly. So my workaround for that is basically that's where I use my thermometer. So I have that ready to test, and I often pick up a blob from the thermometer and drop it in the tray, so I'm not using that dropper. And then I'll put a timer on my phone so that I can come back and remember, because you know how it goes. Sometimes you eat an edible and then you forget what you were working on. And because I don't own a microwave, reheating it sometimes is a bit of a pain in the ass. So that's my little trick. I'll just put a timer on my phone, and I leave this device out on the counter so that when I'm going back into the kitchen for something, oh yeah, I still have to test that. And it only takes a couple minutes, so it's not really, when I do go to do the testing, it's not a big deal, but it's just a matter of remembering to come back to do it when it falls within that temperature range. So that would be my only, it's not even a critique, it's just the only little thing you have to think about when you're using this device. But beyond that, this thing is simple. There's no refills for this particular part of the device. I think there are refills if you're testing flour. There's reagents you might have to buy again in order to keep using the expansion kit. But when you're using it just for the infusions, this is it. You buy it once and you have it. And like I said, it gives you great peace of mind when you're testing your infusions, if you're wanting to use them as gifts or whatever it is that you're doing. I have found that when I pull an infusion out of the cupboard and I want to go make something, if I don't have the potency listed on that infusion, I've become way more reluctant in using it, because I've just gotten to the point where this ballparking and guessing thing, I've realized now over the years, I used to do that a lot. I was just like, oh, I've gotten so much more comfortable and well versed in what I'm doing, and you get a sense, if you use the same process every time for making your infusions, it should be about the same. Well, maybe, but there's so many variables that can affect the outcome, such as the potency of the trim or the flour that you're using. And if I'm not using the same thing every time, that can make a significant difference. So I just find that I use this, I test it, I label my infusion, and then when I go to reach for it next time, I can easily calculate how potent a batch of cookies is or what have you, because I'm confident in the results from the tCheck. So I recommend you check it out if it's something that you're interested in. It's worth the investment. It's not inexpensive. It is an investment, but if you're making a lot of edibles and this is something you enjoy doing and you foresee doing for the near future, then it's a worthwhile investment to have in your home kitchen. So, yeah, I hope you're making some tasty edibles, my friends. Stay high.